Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next episode of Final Stallions!
And today we got a great guest. We got Jackson Neesley, guitar player extraordinaire, guitar teacher, piano player extraordinaire, piano teacher, bass player extraordinaire, bass teacher, also a percussionist. Does it all.
All
This
things
man
music.
knows music.
That's right. I do have a drum student too, so
That's right.
yeah.
Chops. All chops.
It's all chops, and it's extraordinaire as bold and capital as you can put it. Because to give a little background, Jackson, Jackson and Klepp went to college together for a little bit, and
Goes back to the early freshman year, 19-year-old to like 22-year-old days.
Yep. And I was had mutual friends, and I would just always hear this name, Jackson, this guitar player. Oh my God, you got to see this. And for the first time during Klepp's bachelor party back in September, I had the pleasure and experience to jam with Jackson and extraordinaire capital letters. Jackson, how we doing today, baby?
I'm good. And JJ, same to you. Like, I've heard a lot about you, heard your name, and we finally went to that concert, and we finally got to jam too. So it was a good time jamming. Like, it was a long time coming, right?
I mean, it was just incredible for me to just play all these songs that I've just had in my head and are working on, and just to be able to play it, not explain anything to you, and then within seconds you are just absolutely ripping your guitar to shreds. And like, I'm just cheesy because I'm like, this is how my songs are supposed to sound.
Yeah, man.
Another
Yeah. I would just say, like, with JJ, like, the first thing we did when we jammed, I think I probably fiddled around a little bit, but we went right into all your songs, and like, I would just kind of ask you, what key, blah blah blah, follow your hands, and next thing you know, it was like we'd been jamming for a long time. So
Yeah.
pretty well. Like, it was some good jams. We got some good recordings out of it. So
Absolutely, man. No, that was incredible time. Shout out to Klepp's bachelor party. Shout out to Klepp for getting married.
Yeah.
Right.
all I was gonna add is, like, if you want to see like what we're talking about here, check out the YouTube channel Dad Jams, because Inside Baseball, so Jackson's dad, Scott, with 2 T's, runs that YouTube channel, and Jackson is on most of the videos, and he does not know what he's getting into before they record him. Like, he just shows up, plays, and like the video is like, it's very refined. But what I mean when I say it's raw is, like, Jackson just goes in there, just like, all right, here's the song, or like, here's the key, and just lets it rip.
that's
So
right.
if you want to see what JJ's talking about, where he's like, oh yeah, like, I just told him this, and that, and then just hear it playing, go to Dad Jams. It's one word with an exclamation mark. Dad Jams.
Link in the description.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, no, at least lately, like, my dad just retired, so I'll be at work in the morning, and I'll show up to his studio at like 1:00, and he'll have like 2 or 3 songs just ready to go, and he'll give me the rundown, and he usually just wants lead guitar on it. So that's usually what I do. But yeah, Dad Jams is a good time. Father-son jams are pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Vinyl Stallions is subscribed to Dad Jams.
Absolutely. And Scott's the man as well. We had the pleasure, Jackson referenced it, but we saw Humphrey McGee's earlier this year in
That's right.
Columbus.
Yeah,
And
there's a full episode on that.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones, and like, holy shit, yeah, what an experience. We just kept moving closer and closer. By the time Jackson, your wife, just got us right to the front when we were just directly in front of the largest speaker
She
there ever
got
was.
to the front row, like, her hands were on that rail.
Yeah, that guitar player was unreal. I don't know his name, but
Chris Sininger, or
there you
Jake
go.
Sininger, not Chris.
Yeah,
Jake.
He
Yeah,
was insane.
he
No.
might be, like, I keep like thinking about it, and I we're all right. Here's how we're gonna start it. Who are the top 3 guitar players that you've seen live? And we're gonna get into like all your background and history, but since like this just came up, top 3 guitar players you see live. And while you're thinking about it, like I guess where I was going with this is like I just think about it, and like every time I just go back to, I'm like, it was Jake from Humphreys. Like he ripped it like nobody else that I've ever seen live.
So let me think. Number 1 is easy because I was at Scully, Columbus, and I got to see Guthrie Govan with his band, the Aristocrats, and I was, 3 feet away from him. And I mean, technically, he's probably one of the best to ever touch the guitar. So that was number 1 in terms of best guitar players. And then, I mean, I saw Joe Satriani live. I mean, he's like one of my biggest idols. And then
There's somebody else you've seen live though.
Dave.
No, another guy
Dave.
whose name
Can't go an
starts with
episode without
Joe.
Dave.
Bonamassa, dude. Yeah, I've seen Joey B a couple times at the Palace downtown. So yeah, that would be the top 3 right there. Thanks for the help, Adam. I forgot about Joey B.
I thought he was gonna come in at number 1, although I could totally see Guthrie ahead of him. Both are fantastic guitar players.
I mean, Guthrie's just something else. Yeah. So seeing that from 3 feet away was definitely a mind-blowing experience. Just the technicality. I mean, you can argue about his music or whatever, but I know I don't have to argue with you, Adam, because you love erotic cakes. That's like one of the best.
Yes.
So
Uncle Skunk.
yes. But Satriani, I mean, seeing him live was crazy. I was way back for that one, but just being in the same room as him, like probably Slash was like the OG like idol to me. I haven't seen him live. I don't really care about him now, but Joe definitely got me into playing lead guitar. Like he's a master. He's got it all. He's got the dynamics, he's got the songwriting and instrumental music. I mean, as you guys know, like the average listener wants to hear vocals. They can relate with that more. So to make instrumental music is much harder to keep people's attention. So Joe's been doing that for how many decades, and he's still killing it. So
and that's like, I don't know, I think that's like the mark of like a guitarist who is just like at the next level. They're like basically playing the singing like what the singer would be doing like note wise. They're playing with the guitar and using that to story tell. It's just there's no like English words, if you will.
Yeah, and
they're still speaking a language.
Yeah, he's got a formula, like he'll set you up, and his melody, like most of the time he'll play it in 1 octave, and then he'll play the same melody an octave higher, and then all of a sudden you're into the solo section, and then he brings back that hook. But yeah, just like you said, Adam, his melodies are singable. It's like a person singing, and then he'll use different techniques to keep your attention even more. But like Crying, a Satriani classic, like he's got the melody octave higher, and then he brings it back 2 octaves lower, like the same melody in different parts of the fretboard. But yeah, that's good stuff.
Hell yeah.
Is right. And so you mentioned like Slash and a couple other people kind of inspired you to get into guitar. So when did you get into guitar? And I like just take us on this journey, because I mean, to be able to teach guitar to get to that point, I mean, I'm gonna assume you had to be in it since you were a wee lad, but break it down for us, Jackson. I would love to know.
Yeah, so I started as a piano player when I was 5, and I think my first teacher, I think I got kicked out. I think I was a little too young. I don't think I was able to focus to her level, but guitar was late. Guitar was 12, 13 before I really got into it. So piano, I had a pretty big advantage on, but I mean, for me, the piano, like I obviously still teach it and play it today, but I've never been comfortable on the piano. It's a much harder instrument. The errors are harder. Guitar, I mean, I kind of fell in love with it like sophomore, junior year of high school. And I was taking lessons, but I didn't get really into it until I quit lessons. So I was doing lessons for maybe 2-3 years, and I wouldn't practice. I would just show up to lesson. I would do my thing. But once I stopped doing lessons, I don't know exactly what happened or what clicked, but it was like Sweet Child of Mine or whatever, like just focusing on one song. But yeah, it wasn't until 12 or 13. But my dad's always played, and for 30 years, I think he was playing the same 10 blues licks or whatever. So I would watch him, and it wasn't that he was a bad teacher, but he almost like didn't want to show me all the tricks he knew, because he had a feeling if he did, that would ruin the mystique. But once I kind of figured out, okay, here's the pentatonic scale, here's this, here's that, like it just, I just started to get obsessed with it. But for the guitar, I can basically play with my eyes closed. I can chill, I can relax. With the piano, I still got to be hyper focused on it. So I think that was the thing for me. Like, guitar was so much more comfortable. I could like actually vibe to it, whereas piano, even now, I don't know. I'm always getting better at it, but I've never been comfortable with the piano like the guitar.
Very nice. Yeah, no, I liked how you just said, it is a moment of just things just clicking, where like you just have like a different vision of looking at the guitar, and like I said, the pentatonic scales, like just looking at it in those aspects. As a teacher, what are some of just the main overview things? Doesn't matter who you're working with, but what are just some must be able to do, must haves that like you immediately go to when you start a class, I guess, with a person?
That's tough because I teach everybody differently. So you can kind of tell within a couple lessons what a student wants. Like, I have some students who like reading music on the guitar, and that's all they want to do. They want to work progress through books. And I have some students where we've never once opened a book, and they just request songs. And I try my best with the music theory side. I think that's why the guitar is so cool. Like, the shape-based format of the fretboard, like, it's a lot easier to transpose stuff, to visualize stuff. Whereas like you guys know, if we're jamming on guitar, what do we say? Like, what key are we in? A minor. Like, we don't need to discuss some of the other stuff. Like, we might talk about some chords, but once you're given that key and you know enough music theory, scale theory, you can kind of just go from there. Whereas the piano, you got to know every individual note you're playing. So I think it was that. But in terms of what I teach people, if we're talking they don't know anything, open chords, you got to start there, bar chords. But to me, I think what I've realized the more I play, like, alternate picking, being able to alternate pick properly is like, that's number one. And I still have students that are 5-6 years into it that we still work on that every day. And I try to, enforce that. But yeah, it's tough. Like, everybody's different, but my usual thing would be open chords, bar chords, pentatonic scale. And then from there you can build. Cause like you guys know, pentatonic scale, you add 2 notes to it, you've got a minor scale. So it's it's a nice foundation. It's a nice framework. And there's a reason it's so popular, even though it's simple. So yeah, alternate picking though, that's to me the number one guitar thing. Like, once you get a grasp on that, the guitar opens up so much more.
And okay, so we'll for sure get back to the guitar, but you did mention earlier you have one student who is doing drum lessons. So also give us your background on drums, and then explain the difference between teaching, like guitar, your number one instrument, the thing that you're the most comfortable with, versus drums, or even piano too, because you've explained why you like guitar more, like why you're more comfortable with it. But I guess like the differences in teaching it versus guitar, and then the differences in teaching drums versus guitar or piano. Sorry, that's like 3 questions.
No, I got the thing with drums. So like, my 2 instruments being guitar and piano, like when you go into middle school and high school, like, you're supposed to play instruments, but those are the 2 instruments you can't really choose. Like, you can do it in jazz band, which is what I did too, but the typical American education system, you need to pick band, orchestra, choir, right? So
yep,
piano and guitar, piano and guitar don't fit into those gaps. However, the layout of the piano is identical to the layout of a marimba, xylophone, vibraphone. So when you're doing percussion, And by the way, the piano is a percussion instrument technically, but the keyboard layout is identical. So for me, that was the closest thing I could do, was do drums. And then, I mean, learning rudiments and like match grip, traditional grip, whatever. I mean, that was all new to me in 8th grade. So like most people did 6, 7, 8 high school, but I think I did orchestra 6 and 7. So I played violin. And I mean, that's probably the hardest instrument like in the world to be proficient at. Maybe piano second, but I didn't love it. And it's, you know, it's a string instrument, but it's nothing like the guitar, you know. So I did percussion just because it was the closest thing to a piano. So when I'm teaching that now, like I say drums, but it's really percussion. So my student, he's going to be joining the marching band next year. So obviously with marching band, some people are marching, some people are in the front ensemble, right? So in the front of the band, you've got people that don't march and they're playing the marimbas. So I always recommend my students join band and do percussion, because I have some jazz band students, but that's like an extra class. Like I was in band and jazz band, you know. So my students who ask, like, what should I do in high school, middle school? I say percussion, because number one, rhythm is usually most guitar players' weakness. Like keeping time, reading rhythms, that's usually a weakness. So when you're playing like snare drum, that's what I did in high school. So I did marching band, you know, all through high school. Freshman year, I was on the little bass drum. Sophomore through senior, I was on snare drum. But when you're playing a snare drum, the music is only rhythm. Like there's one note and you're just reading complicated rhythm. So to me, that really opened up the guitar, because all of a sudden 8th notes and 16th notes were like that, you know, that was like the bare minimum. So that's where like Corey Wong, you know, he was the same way. He did snare drum all through high school, and that led to him being, you know, a funk rhythm, like guitar god, basically, just from translating that. So yeah, with my drum student, it's bell kit. So it's like teaching piano. We're hitting mallets onto a keyboard essentially. And then we do rudiment training and stuff too. But yeah, drums are pretty tough, but you're just focused on the rhythm, at least when you're playing like a practice pad or snare drum. Whereas bell kit, that's just a piano with one finger in each hand. You know what I mean? And then obviously high level marimba, you start holding 2 sticks at the same time. I don't know if you guys seen this, where you'll have 2 in each hand, so you can play 4-note voicings and stuff. But yeah, it's just kind of like teaching piano.
Yeah, the marimba players that do that are insane. I remember, our freshman year at Ohio State, we went to some like jazz club jam, and there was some dude ripping the marimba with like 2 mallets in each hand, and I was just in awe, because it was the first time I had ever seen that. And actually, I think it's the only time. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do it since then.
Yeah, that was our entire, like, I mean, because like, you know, when you do marching band, when the season's over, you go into concert band. So a lot of our music would have 4-note voicings on marimba, so you had no choice. And then you would use inside mallets to play your single note runs. But like it's kind of like chopsticks. You just change the interval distance, and then you can hit 2 notes at once and how close and far they are. But even then, you know, piano, you got 10 fingers, where with a marimba with 2, you still only have 4. So you're doing 4-note voicings most of the time, or sometimes 3-note voicings. But you know what I mean? It's a little bit like, and the, you know, the keys are bigger. So to me, it's like a simplified piano, like playing marimba. But it's obviously a little different instrument, but the layout is identical with the white and black keys and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Jackson, how long have you been teaching for?
So I think like, because I was at Ohio State with Adam, like you mentioned, and I was working.
You started right towards the end of that.
Yeah, it was like junior year, in the junior year house. But I mean, I was working at Kennedy Commons, and what did we make there, Adam? Like
minimum wage, whatever it was at that time. That's like what it was.
Yeah, so like most of my time there, I was thinking like, I got to figure something out better than this. So my roommate, Lucky, he had a girl he was interested in. He'll never see this podcast, I assume, so I don't want to embarrass him, but he had a girl he was interested in, and he was like, why are you going into Kennedy Commons? Why don't you just teach guitar? And so he got me my first student, which was a girl he wanted to hang out with. So he she'd come over to our house, I'd teach her, and then you'd try to hang out with her, but she would just go home. So
Well, I mean, that's crazy in my mind. I mean, you just said you picked up the guitar at like 12 or 13 years old, and by junior year of college, you're already being able to teach it. Is like, was there ever a moment where you're like, I don't know, uh, like when that happened, were you immediately jumping on it? Were you like, I don't know if I want to teach someone, or were they like, hey, I'll pay you, and you're just like, fuck yeah, I'll teach you right now?
I will say, like, before, because there's guitar players that are way better than me that can't teach. So teaching is a skill, and there's teachers that are worse than me at guitar that are better teachers. So skill level is one thing, but yeah, communication, being able to explain. But at first, I didn't feel like a fraud, but like it was very weird at first teaching people, just because I don't know. It's weird when you first start because I'd never done it before. I never had training. I mean, I had lessons, so I kind of knew how a lesson would go. But at this point, I've taught well over 10,000 lessons. I mean, I've been doing it. Yeah, like I did the math like years ago, and I was like, oh, I've done like 7,000. I haven't done the math since, but I've done a lot of lessons. But yeah, the first 50 lessons, I was feeling a little bit strange. But I think just the more I did it, I got more confident with my abilities, and I would always get good feedback. Like, when I worked at the music stores, like I would have no turnover. Like students would stick around. And even now, I don't even advertise because I've just got the same students every week for now. But yeah, I think at first it was a little bit weird because I'd never done it. And I'm like charging people money and all this stuff, but I've only gotten good feedback. So I think I just built off that. And then at some point I was like, this is what I do. This is great. I love it. And yeah.
So how many students do you have right now?
I usually have between 40 and 50 a week.
Damn, so, that's crazy. Yeah. Wait, like 40 and 50, like one, like per week, 40, 50.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I do 30-minute lessons every week, same time. And I try to be flexible with, if somebody can't make it, I'll try my best to accommodate that. But yeah, I mean, I think what I would say is it's more so a customer service and communication job than like my guitar skill has never really come into question. Like, I've had very few moments where like I'm teaching someone and I'm like, oh, they might be too good for me to teach. Like that's never an issue. It's just like understanding a student, communicating with them. And like I said before, like everybody's different. Like some of these students, if I was forcing them to read a book, they would have lasted a month, but they're still going to get better. And then I try my best to incorporate music theory. Like if a student just wants to learn Metallica songs, I don't want to just give them like tab and be like, here you go. So there's always some supplemental information involved,
Have you ever had a student that just came in, thought they were the shit, and then you just had to like humble them?
Ooh. I don't know. I mean, I've been really lucky, like with my students being chill and polite and stuff. I have very few like horror stories about students, but I have had one situation where I was teaching a guy for the first time and like, I gave him the lesson for free because I was like, I wasn't prepared. Like he was better than I expected. So I wasn't as prepared as I would have been if I knew, but I don't think I've had a student show up and think they were hot shit. And then I had to humble them or anything. Like
they're like correcting you. Like that's what I'm imagining is like,
that luckily has not happened.
Yeah. Good.
Here's a sort of random question, but still related. What, I guess, songs, like, are there any certain songs or artists that you find students just like wanting to learn about like pretty frequently?
I gotta think. So, I mean, honestly, I say Metallica because that's really popular, but I mean, with me, it's like, I always wonder, like, how long will classic rock, like, be relevant? Because, like, I feel like part of me is, like, keeping classic rock alive, because with most students, that's what I like to teach and they usually enjoy it. But I don't know if there's like a common thing that always comes up. I mean, Master of Puppets is a really popular request by kids.
Hell yeah. But, Ripper.
Yeah. No, it's cool stuff, but I don't know. I don't really there's not like a specific thing. Like I have songs that I'll do with students frequently just because I think they're like, they have something beneficial to them. Because like anytime I learn a song with a student, there's a reason for it. Like we're going to work on chord strumming. We're going to work on rhythm. We're going to work on alternate picking. So we'll look at this example. But yeah, there's not something that comes to my mind about like frequent requests or anything.
So I guess here's a question too. So like let's say a student requests Master of Puppets. Like that's a 9-minute song with like a ton of different guitar solos and stuff. Like when they request that, are you teaching them just like all right, here's like the basic structure of the song, like here's the key it's in, the chords, or are you like teaching them like every single note in the song and like they are learning it like verbatim?
So that's one thing I've had criticisms from parents. Like they'll be like, my kid can't play a full song, or like, you know, they can only play parts of songs. So like that's one thing I've dealt with. Because yeah, Master of Puppets, I've never worked on the whole song with a student. Like it'll be like the intro riff, you know, there's I don't know how many riffs in that song, but it's always broken up into like chunks, and then some kids want to skip right to the solo. But yeah, I've never once like taught that song all the way through. I usually, when a student wants to learn a song, they usually want to learn a specific part. So it'll be like, let's learn the main riff, let's talk about that. But yeah, that's usually what I do. Like if we're learning a song, we'll do like Sultans of Swing. I've never gone all the way through that song. It'll be like, let's figure out the chord progression, let's figure out the right hand technique. It's always to like kind of build off of. But yeah, very rarely will I go through a full song with a student. Just how it works out with the 30-minute lesson and their attention span, to be honest. So yeah, very rarely are we doing full songs in lesson and stuff like that.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it almost seems to like it wouldn't be as beneficial as like you said, hopping around between different songs and picking out like different parts that highlight like a certain skill or progression or
And just like different chords in general, man. Like that's how a lot of I mean, I don't know music theory, but that is how I don't know. I learned majority of my chords is just learning different songs and then picking that chord, moving it up a couple frets, and then boom, now it's your own.
Yeah, and I mean, like if I'm working on bar chords with a student, that's when we'll like find a song with bar chords, find a part of a song, and yeah, I mean, music theory. The only reason, I mean, some people think it overcomplicates. You know, like it's like I can already play this. Why do I need to know? But the big thing I've realized the more I've, you know, because a lot of my job is like, okay, what do you want to do today? And I'll get a request, and I'm almost like you know, like a live performer at that point, where like if you got a request, you'd have to figure it out quick. So that's probably the skill I've gained the most from, is like figuring out songs quickly. But if you understand music theory, there's so many similarities between songs that's why some people can figure out a song instantly. They're not geniuses necessarily. There's so many patterns. You know what I mean? So to me, that's where music theory is important, like understanding chord progressions relative to the root. You know what I mean? So that's like the Nashville system, 1-4-5. Why do we say 1-4-5 instead of CFG? Because that pattern can be relative to any key, right? So when you start to see a bunch of 1-6-4-5 chord progressions, like when I'm doing pop songs on the piano, I mean, it's like there's so many similarities that people will be like shocked that I can figure it out so quick. And I'm like, well, this chord progression is in a lot of songs. So that's where music theory to me is super important. Like analyzing music quickly, you know, because I'll literally be in the beginning of a lesson, get a request for a song I've never heard of. And my first thought is, okay, let's listen to it. Let's see how much I can figure out on my own. And usually I'll know right away if it's possible or if I need a reference or whatever. But especially on guitar, like the only things that'll mess with you are like capos and like different tunings. If a song's in like standard tuning and it's like, I've got a pretty good chance of figuring it out using prior knowledge, you know.
Very nice. And where can these people find you at? Do you have a website or anything?
I don't really have a website, but I have an email. I've got a YouTube channel. I've got a phone number. Yeah. Anybody who wants lessons, I'm always down. But yeah, in the
check the link. Check the link.
Yeah. But
and Instagram too, right?
I do. It kind of got ruined by COVID. So once COVID happened, I was teaching exclusively online. So I can't really film. I was filming students in the middle of a lesson and stuff. So that kind of died. But I do technically have an Instagram, but
Fair enough.
Very nice. So you have again when we jammed up a couple weekends ago. We were chatting about how I'm very songwriter focused, and I feel so blind to tone. And I know we've talked about this a couple times on Vinyl Stallions before. It is a weakness of mine, but as soon as I said that, Jackson, your eyes lit up, I remember, and you were like, that is my bread and butter. I know tone so well. So I know we chatted about it, but what are some essential pedals that you feel a guitarist should just have?
That's a great question, and one that I would never be able to think of. Drummer
Yeah,
swine
so
over here.
fair. I mean, so for me, um, are you familiar with the effects loop, JJ?
Yes, I know a little bit about it, but give us a little bit more details so the listeners can
Yeah,
understand it.
so for me, I'm just looking down on my board right now, but for me, number one would be a tuner pedal. Just convenience factor, kill switch. It can also be always on. Like you can run it through your volume pedal and have it always on so you can see notes while you're playing. I've got the Ibanez tube screamer. That's pretty nice just to be able to switch from a clean to a lead tone with your foot without having to have a special amp. But the reason I mentioned the effects loop is like I've got a carbon copy digital or a analog delay and an analog chorus, but those only work really well if you're running it through an effects loop. That way they don't mess with your distortion pedal. Like if you're running the effects loop, it's running a totally separate, like it's not going to interfere with the pedals you don't want it to. And then we get to the looper pedal, which is probably, I said tuner number one, looper's probably number one, just because it's an amazing practice tool. And when you're good at it, you're playing for people that don't play guitar, they don't even know what's going on. It's like you're able to like by yourself, like play solos and all that stuff. So yeah, so tube screamer, looper. I do have a compressor on at all times. I've loved that ever since I got one of those. But yeah, I can drop a picture of my pedal board and some ideas in your description if you'd like. But yeah, you really need to be able to switch your tone with your foot on the fly. So that's where the distortion or tube screamer comes in, right? Being able to change from clean to dirty without taking your hands off the guitar is pretty vital, you know.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you breaking that down for us. And like, let's keep this rig rundown going. So what are we currently working with our amp and guitar? And then I guess what has been your favorite that you've tried throughout the years that it may not be in your possession at this moment?
So I pretty much have I have all the guitars I would ever need. I don't shop or look at guitars because I pretty much have whatever I could want. But I mean, I'm a Strat guy. I think to me, they're the most comfortable guitar. I love the tone differences. I love guitar players that play Strats, but amp wise, so effects loop, I've got the Mark 525 Mesa Boogie. That's probably my favorite amp. And then it's got two channels. So I mentioned the tube screamer, but I can switch to a, amp distortion with a foot switch. So it's kind of like a pedal, but it's built into the amp. And then I've got the Vox AC15 tube amp. Always tube amps. I mean, obviously a little pricier or whatever, but once I started playing tube amps, I can't really play solid state amps anymore. And then other guitars, I mean,
really quick though, because so like you and JJ know what the fuck that means because you play guitar. What is the difference between a tube amp and solid state? Like for somebody who does not know about guitars, like how would you describe the differences?
So I'm not going to be able to be really good with the technical side of it, but essentially it's analog versus digital. Like a solid state amp is using like a circuit board, digital circuit to create the tones. Whereas the tube amps, every tube amp, you can see literal tubes. They take a while to warm up. So when you first flip on the amp, there's no noise. They have to heat up, and the hotter they get, the better they get type of thing. And I think the big thing is like the volume. Like the louder you get on a tube amp, you get more of like a breakup, like a raw sound. And keep in mind, pretty much all the rock and roll and guitar music we listen to is coming out of tube amps. Or I can't really think of anybody that would purposely not use a tube amp. But yeah, it's analog versus digital. The tube amp is like your analog and the solid state's your digital. But you can't really describe the tone because like my producer buddy, Mike Robinson, he's into audio recording and stuff, and he says at this point, like, computer-based like audio processors are basically identical to tube amps. So like an amp modeling software, like at the high end, they're when you're recording them, they're almost identical. So I don't know too much about that, but yeah, for me, it's just the tone. I don't know how to explain it. The tone is definitely different, tube versus solid state.
Yeah, well, the digital versus analog, that analogy makes sense.
Yeah.
All right,
Jack-
so continue. You were breaking down your amp rig.
Yeah, so I've got the Mark V in a cab, and I mean that's the cool part about having a separate amp head and cabinet. You know, you can, like, my amp head is lunchbox size, the cabinet is massive, but if you just have the separate components, you can bring that amp head and plug it in a venue, plug it into any type of cabinet. Whereas like a combo amp is like you've got the volume and the speaker all built in, so you really don't have a choice. So it's nice. It's nice to have both of those. And then in terms of guitars, like I said, I love Strats, which a lot of people do. To me, it's like a spectrum. Like I'd put Strat here, and I'd put Les Paul at the opposite end in terms of sound, feel, how they feel to play. So I do have a Les Paul, and it's like a love-hate relationship, mostly love, but to me, it's like a fancy piece of furniture. Like it's a little more uncomfortable to play, but the more I play it, I get used to it. But the Strat is like always comfortable. And then I've got a Joe Satriani signature with a Floyd Rose. So it's nice. Like when I was younger, my only guitar was a Floyd Rose guitar, and I didn't fully understand it, and it was a complete nightmare, essentially. But when you have multiple guitars, it's nice to like have that when you want it. Because do you know what a Floyd Rose is, Adam?
Nope.
It's a. Do you know what a bridge is on a guitar?
Nope.
So, I mean, do you want me to get up and start grabbing stuff, or just explain it?
No. If you have one handy, yeah, absolutely. Bring
Yeah,
it
let
in
me
screen.
grab the Floyd Rose real quick.
And this break is unofficially brought to you by the Winking Lizard. The Winking Lizard, soon to hopefully, maybe, possibly be partners of the Vinyl Stallions.
Let's go. So
Lizard looking good.
this is a bridge on a guitar, like where the strings are coming out of. But essentially, a Floyd Rose is like a type of bridge that's floating. So
Okay.
I don't have my whammy bar in here, but essentially, you've got strings on top, springs in the back, and they're in perfect balance. And then up here on the guitar, this is called the nut. So on Floyd Rose guitars, we have a locking nut. So if you can see, these are like Allen key, like screws locking in the nut. So if I touch this right now, it's not going to do anything because it's frozen here. So this is Eddie Van Halen. This is like you can hold the guitar by the whammy bar and do whatever you want, and it's going to stay in perfect balance. So the problem with perfect balance is when I was 13, I would want to like go into drop D. And when you go into drop D, you're lowering this string, and then the springs below are suddenly pulling in harder. So this thing lives in standard tuning. And if I want to play some Van Halen or play some Joe Satriani or do some whammy bar tricks, I've got that. But that is not a normal bridge, you know, for the average guitar. Like a Stratocaster, you know, we've got springs in the back. That's what's behind this little cube here. But we don't have a locking nut up here. So normally what happens, and the reason I don't use whammy bars on this, like if I lower the whammy bar, the strings might get caught on this nut and go out of tune. Whereas with that locking nut, they're just going to be locked in. So you're not going to lose the tuning just because of that balance. So yeah, it's just nice to have multiple guitar. I mean, guitars are tools at the end of the day. So being able to utilize a different one for a different sound is pretty vital, you know.
Absolutely. That's something I've been like trying to work on with drums, is like just getting different sticks, different mallets, like whatever, and just like seeing what types of different noises I can make. And I mean, I feel like that's true of any instrument. Like there's always different ways to get different effects, and it's all about trying it out and seeing what you like.
Yeah, that being said though, the more I play guitar and the older I get, I realize that while different guitars do sound different, I mean, it's not as big. I mean, it is a big difference, but it's more about the the hands and the playing. Like I mean, I was really into metal like in high school, and if I ever saw like a guy playing Stratocaster metal, I would just assume, oh, this doesn't make sense. But that's really not totally true. Like you can kind of get away with playing any genre and any guitar depending on your skill level. So, but that being said, if you know what you're doing and you have the right tool, you can make it even bigger difference with the tone. You know what I mean? So, yeah, having a Strata Les Paul and a Floyd Rose type guitar, that covers a lot of bases. That's a lot of different sounds right there.
That's right. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure the first guitar I saw you play was that purple guitar, which I think had 7 strings, didn't it?
So I think you're talking about the Music Man, the Ernie Ball Music Man, but I did have a 7-string guitar. So I don't know which one you're thinking of, but I did have a 7-string guitar at Baker West at one point.
I just remember being enamored with it because it was the first time I ever realized it could have more than 6.
Are you a rosewood or maple neck guy?
I don't know. I mean, I've got the maple neck Strat. I don't know if there's a tone difference. I'd have to like go literally back and forth with the exact same guitar with different necks, but I just think maple necks look cool. And with a Les Paul, there's no choice. You need rosewood. So for me, that was an easy choice. Like I'll have rosewood on Les Paul, maple on the Strat. Worked out, but I don't know. What
are there differences in durability between those two?
No, I think it's easier to clean like a maple fretboard because you can see it better. And like some rosewood fretboards, like the grain is like more visible. And like with my Les Paul, there's a couple spots where you can like almost, there's like little cracks, or I mean, it's natural part of the guitar, but to me, maple it's easier to clean. But I think in theory, the maple necks are supposed to be brighter, like a little poppier.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's more about feel. I have a very just one end of the spectrum to another of my maple experience. I got a Telly, and the maple neck that is on that and is like very sticky. Like it's very sticky. And then the PRS Silver Sky that I just got is maple as well, but it literally feels like a rosewood, and it actually is like the perfect in between for what I wanted, without even trying it beforehand. But yeah, so maple. The 2 guitars that I've had are both maple, but like you said, it's more about feel. I don't know, like you said, tone, how much it affects it or not. It's just preference there. All right. So have you dove into like original music? Have you played with a band in your career?
That was what I was just about to get into, because Jackson mentioned somebody earlier, Mike Robinson. Tell us about Jam City.
The highlight of my music career was Jam City, but it was the easiest job of all time. So Mike Robinson, he's like a successful producer in Nashville right now, killing it. Amazing guitar player, amazing songwriter, amazing producer. And even like he's 2 years younger than me. So even in high school, when I would be like senior and he's a sophomore, like you could just tell, like he's smart, knows what he's doing. So with Jam City, I don't know how many shows exactly we played, but we got to play at the Newport a couple times, which was like, I mean,
I was there for one of them. I was there for one of them as well. Just I'd vodka gummy bears before, and I just stumbled in there, and I didn't even know you at the time, and I was just like, "What is happening?" Playing the Foo Fighters.
That's right. Yeah, with Kev. Yep. No, I mean, like Mike would, like our basic set list would be, because at the time Mike was pushing his own album, so he had an EP with 4 or 5 songs on it or whatever. And so half of our set would be those songs, half of our set would be covers, but we had really serious practices. And Mike would show up with like, first of all, he would book the venue. He'd invite all his friends. He'd have sheet music and everything for us. Like he made it so easy. We just show up to practice and he's got all the music. He's got the set list. He took ideas, but it was just, in a situation like that, it's I feel like, I don't know, I mean, I've only been in like one serious band, but feel like having a clear leader helps everything. Like just no arguing, he was like, here's what we're doing. And then he would take requests on like what cover songs we should do. But yeah, he set everything up, but we played the basement. I mean, I don't even know, like 5 times. And our best shows were at the basement because we wouldn't get that many people to go. So filling that place was a lot easier than the Newport. I think one of our Newport shows, there were 20 or 30 people in the crowd. You know what I mean? So, but just playing at the Newport was like probably the coolest thing ever. Cause what bands like haven't played at the Newport, It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
like Chili Peppers had played there, Pink Floyd's played there. Like, I don't even know. It was just cool to be on that stage where you just knew like all these other bands had been. But yeah, that was all Mike. He set everything up. He set us up for success, and it was a great time. I feel like that was a huge like confidence booster, because I don't know, it was weird. I never once was like nervous or anything. I was just like, let's go. We're prepared. Everything would be memorized, and we had 0 like on stage issues. Like we were pretty solid. So
Kick ass.
Yeah, I was at that Newport show, and I mean, you guys did kill it. That was so much fun, just like as an audience member.
Yeah, we had Kev on the vocoder, remember, for Give Life Back to Music. The song, like that was pretty awesome. I actually have that list here. One of my most prized possessions. So this was the set list for one of the Newport shows. So Get It Started, obviously a cover. Disease was an original. We played Mississippi Queen, and then Rock the Bus was like the band introduction song. So I think it was just like 1-4-5 and F sharp or something. Like Mike, like he was just like, and on lead guitar, Jackson Neesley, and then we would play a solo. Then he'd be like JT on the drums, all that stuff. And then we had Safe was an original, Talk Dirty to Me, obviously cover, and then Next Time. So it was literally like cover, original, cover, original, original, cover, original. That's the pick I use. You can tell it's close to my heart. I got a frame.
Let's go. That's awesome.
That's sick. Yeah.
And this was like Mike's handwriting. And when you play live, like he would tape it to the floor, so we could see it. Nobody could see it, just for us to keep track.
Kick ass, man. No, there's nothing like just I don't know. Yeah, just there's nothing like creating with other people. And hint, I think there's something in the future of Stallions Jackson collaboration.
Please.
That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. Description. Yeah, just look below. and hit that like and subscribe. But what music do you enjoy listening to in general?
You're reading my mind, Spruce. That was like exactly where I was.
It's like we've done these.
Next.
It's like we've done these so many times.
Man, I mean, I feel like right now, I mean, I was really, really big into like Corey Wong, Wolfpack, like all that funk stuff for a while. I mean, metal is always close to my heart just because that's kind of what kickstarted guitar for me. Because like when you're learning, I mean, I say it all the time, but like there's so many riffs I've learned that, like I mentioned before, a lot of songs are similar, and like blues songs, I mean, come on, like there's maybe on the last bar, the 12 bar, you'll have a little difference, but metal's like the opposite. There's so many Rubik's Cube level riffs I've learned where you're like, you'll never play that again. But I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I can look a little through Spotify, but it seems like lately I love listening to rap, like Kendrick Lamar, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Wolfpack, John Mayer, big John Mayer fan. I'll always defend him. I have a lot of students who question him, and I'm just like,
oh my God,
he's a blues god. You know what I mean? Kanye.
Yeah, I've never understood it too. Like I don't know. I remember, so I was supposed to go to a John Mayer concert in February, and it got canceled due to like he got COVID the night before. And I remember the day before, I just tell my coworkers, hey, like I'm going to this John Mayer concert this weekend, and they're like, what? Like, you're a guy, why are you going to John Mayer? Like, that's for girls. Like the most barbaric logic. I'm just like, have you ever listened to a song? Like, just one.
I know It's your body is a wonderland. That's all people like.
That song is insane, and what he's playing on the guitar is insane in that song.
Yeah, Alive in LA, that Jimi Hendrix like cover album he does is like, I mean, it's one of the greatest guitar albums I've ever heard. So
Yes.
the tones are immaculate and his singing is insane. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't understand how hard that is to do, like what he does. I mean, and people don't watch enough YouTube because like there are countless YouTube videos of like guitar gods like praising him and blues guys. I mean, B.B. King played with him and was like,
Yep.
and out of the whole time, like, oh my God, what is going on?
Hold on, Dead and Company. Like,
oh, of course, yeah,
let's not forget that. And
it's been like 10 years that he's been in there at this point, right? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And Jackson, you absolutely should go next summer because it's their last tour. And I was lucky enough to go last year. Well, I guess this last summer. And like my biggest takeaway from it was like when Dead and Co is done, like John Mayer should start a jam band. Like pick a drummer, pick a bass player, like start a jam band because like my biggest takeaway from a Dead and Co show is like, wow, there's this one guy that's like way better than everyone else. Like we're talking about Grateful Dead here.
Oh yeah.
Nah, John absolutely kills that. I saw it last year in 2021, but I do feel like I got to get closer, and yeah, that's gonna be a crazy last tour. Man, yeah, fuck. So much good music. Jackson, I'll never forget like the first time I feel like we formally met. Like I said, we had crossed paths like when I was at the Newport on the vodka gummies and then other things. But last November, Nationwide Arena, Dave Matthews Band, floor seats. Like we were waiting in line for so long before, and like what just an out of body experience that concert was.
Yeah, I've seen Dave 7 times now, and I don't even have to think about it when somebody asks me, like, oh, what was the best one? Nationwide Arena, November, I think 5th.
Yeah, because it's my brother's birthday.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even know how to explain that concert, to be honest. But first of all, like, in my, before that show, like if my dad and I would go to a show, it'd be like, if we're in the building, we're there, who cares? But that was probably, besides like Guthrie, I was front row just because it's Scully's, nobody's there, you just walk up. But being able to see someone like Dave 10 feet away for how long did he play? 3.5 hours. I mean,
yeah.
That was literally an out-of-body experience, and I don't know what else to say about it, honestly.
And those and the taco slapped after. That's all you gotta say.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Cantina.
That's wrong pins. That's
wrong
right.
pins. That's right. That was funny. Hell yeah.
But
Jack,
really, back to like listening to music and Dave. Like, I was just recently on the way home from picking up my dog. I just got a puppy, and on the way back, we listened to 3 Dave Matthews Band albums, and mine, I always say, is Under the Table and Dreaming. Like, it's 1994 birth year. It was playing in the house. You know, I know all the like sax solos by memory and stuff. And then we went through Busted Stuff. I love that album. But the album that I feel like the more I listen to it, the more I like it. And honestly, it's getting really close to being number 1. Grugruck's King. I mean,
yes.
I don't even know. I think it's the electric guitar element. I don't know what it is, but like, shake me like a monkey, baby. You know?
Oh, yeah. That song is crazy.
Yeah.
I got that at like the very first Dave show that I ever went to in Noblesville, Indiana. I got that one and Why I Am, and I haven't heard him since. And like, although the Nationwide Arena show was like the best overall Dave show that I've been to, specifically those 2 songs, like those are the best 2 Dave songs that I've heard live. And it just seems like no matter what it is, like any song off of that album, Grugrucks, the way they play it live, they just take it to an even higher level.
Dude, Dave's voice on that album is just like reverb dripped, and like go listen to Lion in the Hands of God, because that song, We'll just dun dun dun. Now the floor is the ceiling.
It's just too good. I don't know that I don't know. I mean, and I don't know enough about Dave to know like I don't know what like he likes to play. Like I don't know what their band's like favorite songs are to play, but I think how many Under the Table songs did we get at our show?
The first, well,
We
kind
got
of the first three
Nancy's
were,
in Warehouse. And Granny, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. Granny's technically not off that album, but it was recorded in those same sessions. And if you get the deluxe edition of that album, it's on that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of on it, kind of not. But yeah. And actually, no, now I think about the first four, because after we got Nancy's, we got Warehouse. Or did you say that, Spruce?
I might have slipped in there.
Okay, so never mind. It's just the first three.
All right, Jackson, let's stay on the live concerts. So, question we ask every guest. What is your most memorable concert experience? And you could take this in a way where it's just jaw-dropping, like it's just stick it in your head, memorable, happy, or it could be like, I saw the most crazy what the fuck moment, and it could happen to you. It could happen to someone else when you were on stage, when you're going to see a concert, and you can have multiple answers as well.
So for me, I got a few. Like we'll just say the Dave, we'll just put that in its own little pocket. I mean, that was unbelievable. Like when you see someone as recognizable and famous as Dave that close, it's literally like seeing a cartoon character. It was like mind blowing. But I think
Sponge Doodle.
for me, like it's tough because like I feel like the luckiest guy ever because in high school I was so into metal and like I saw every one of my favorite bands like front row for $20. So I think the first time I saw Between the Buried and Me live, it was like seeing Dave. Like I've watched these guys on YouTube. I've heard every song a million times. Like seeing them in person for the first time when they walked out was like, I mean, it was trippy. It was ridiculously crazy. But I think in terms of memorable moments though, like I'll never forget how Joe Bonamassa, like when he, like he would, probably the craziest showman I've ever seen in my life. Like he would have 10 guitars like on stands like lined up behind him and like I just remember how he would literally switch from like playing guitar, unplug, set down, pick up, plug in. I mean, he could switch guitars in like 1 second. It was like the craziest thing I've ever seen. But no, I'm lucky. I have a lot of crazy concert moments. Muse at the Schottenstein Center. I mean, I had like back seats, like we were way back, but the light show, like I never will forget that. It was like the craziest thing ever. Like, you know, Bellamy had like the acrylic piano, like every note he played would light up on the piano. And like, I think he like took his guitar off and like threw it on the piano. He like destroyed the piano at this time. So I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff live. And you guys have probably been to 10 times as many concerts as me, but I don't know. I feel like I very carefully will select what I will go to. Like I'm a little picky. Like I'm only going to go if I know it's going to be awesome. But metal shows are definitely what I think of the most, just because the price. I mean, there's no seats. You want to be in the front row, just get in the front row. So I've seen all of my favorite bands in the front row for $20, and obviously the energy level of a metal show with the mosh pits and the pushing and the screaming every word. I mean, definitely my favorite shows ever were like metal shows.
Hell yeah. No, I mean, I love a good metal show too. Like not quite like I guess as heavy as like Between the Buried and Me, but a band that I've seen twice is Korn, and their shows are like ridiculously fun.
They're definitely as heavy as Between the Buried and Me.
Yeah, Linkin Park's another I saw when I was in high school, and like at that time they were my favorite band, and just like the shock of just like finally getting to hear your favorite band live is just unreal. And yeah, like the energy is insane. Like they did like a 5 or 6 song encore. It's like most of the time you just get 1 or 2.
True.
Yeah,
All right.
speaking of Muse too, they're coming to Columbus in March, Nationwide Arena.
Ooh. A return trip to the Nationwide.
Yes.
Don't twist my arm. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, Jackson Neesley. But for real, Jackson, man, we appreciate you coming on. I know we've been trying to have you on. We will definitely have you back on. And like I said, like we've said multiple times, go check the description for all things Jackson. But like I teased earlier as well, maybe a little original music coming from Stallions, Jackson, and friends.
I'm down, and yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And I think I was originally supposed to be one of your first guests, so it's nice coming on when your podcast is like solidified with all these crazy artists you've had on. So I definitely appreciate you still wanting me on after having.
Absolutely. And this won't be the last that we'll be seeing of you.
Absolutely not. Clap, you're in the Northern Lights now. You've upgraded.
I am. My spacecraft must have landed.
Ooh, and that's the bell ringing to wrap this bad boy up. Club's landed on planet Earth.
But that's how you know it's over. But just for now.
Yeah, just for now. We'll be back. But for now, my name is Spruce.
I'm Clep.
And this has been another episode of Vinyl Stallion.